desolate desert where, as far as the eye could see, there was only sand and scorching wind. Across this very desert, a merchant caravan began its journey many years ago. It was a procession of camels, the sound of bells, the jingle of gold and silver, the scent of spices, silk-laden bags, and water skins. Their destination was a prosperous city, a hub for vibrant trade fairs. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. At night, they would sing under the starlit sky and tell stories around a crackling fire. During the day, the camels trudged slowly under the blazing sun. But on the fourth night, strange things began to happen. A whistling sound seemed to rise from within the sand. Sometimes it sounded like distant laughter, other times like weeping. The caravan's elderly guide, Abdallah, said, "This desert is cursed. Many caravans have taken this path and never returned." Everyone thought he was just recounting old folklore. But slowly, the situation grew terrifying. One morning, a camel was missing. Along with it, a merchant had also vanished. Despite a thorough search, not a single trace was found, no footprints, no blood, nothing. It was as if they had dissolved into thin air. As the days passed, fear gripped the members of the caravan. In the dead of night, they would sometimes see a light in the distance, as if another caravan was traveling alongside them. But upon approaching, there was nothing in the empty, silent desert. Then came that final night, the last time the caravan was ever seen alive. At dawn, other travelers passing through the desert only saw a few scattered bells, some torn pieces of cloth, and a half-buried water jug on the sand. There were no people, no camels, only the mystery of the vanished caravan. To this day, the locals say that on a full moon night, the sound of the invisible caravan's bells can be heard drifting across the desert. Some say they were lost forever in the trap of a mirage. Others believe that the unknown spirits of the desert dragged them into another world. But the real mystery? No one ever found out. As the first light of dawn touched the hot sand, the people of the caravan slowly opened their eyes. The night had been strangely whispering in the wind, followed by sudden, unnerving silence. Many hadn't been able to sleep. The caravan's leader was a merchant named Caravan. He had a thick beard, a prayer mark on his forehead, and a glint of intelligence in his eyes. With him were a total of 25 men, 10 camels, and heaps of merchandise. The guide was the old man, Abdallah, who could navigate by every star and sand dune in the desert. That morning, everyone packed their belongings. Bells were hung around the camels' necks. The caravan began to move slowly through the sand. As the sun rose, the heat intensified. The camels panted, and the men's mouths grew dry. At one point, a young member of the caravan, Jamal, spoke up. "He said, this path feels unfamiliar. Are we going in the right direction?" Abdallah looked up at the sky and said, "The stars do not lie. We are on the right path." But no matter how well you know the desert, it always hides unknown mysteries with it. Everyone fell silent. The only sounds were the plodding of the camels' feet in the sand and the tinkling of their bells. As night fell, the caravan halted. A fire was lit, and they ate some dry bread and dates. But suddenly, one of the camels became agitated, as if it were seeing something invisible. Its eyes turned red, and the bell around its neck began to ring with a frantic, sharp sound. Caravan, startled, exclaimed, "What is happening? Why has the camel gone mad like this?" No one could answer. But old Abdallah slowly said, "I told you, this desert is cursed. Many caravans have come this way and never returned." Everyone looked around uneasily. It was dark all around them, just the silent desert under a star-filled sky. Suddenly, a light appeared in the distance, as if another caravan was on the move. The men stared, mouths agape. But in an instant, the light vanished. Silence descended. After the strange light disappeared in the night, a palpable fear settled over the caravan. Everyone huddled closer to the fire. The air suddenly felt heavy, and an unfamiliar chill swept through a cold that was completely out of place in the desert's heat. A few hours passed, and the exhausted men fell asleep. But when they awoke at dawn, screams of terror filled the air. A merchant, a young man named Musa, was gone. His sleeping mat was empty, and the water jug beside it was also missing. A search of the surrounding area revealed no clues, no footprints, no blood, no camel tracks, nothing. It was as if he had vanished into the sand overnight. Haiti Caravan said in a grim voice, "Everyone, stay calm. We will cross this desert and reach our destination as quickly as possible. There is no need for anyone to be afraid." But the men could not hide their terror. Some were crying, some were reciting verses from the Caravan, while others stared fearfully at the surrounding dunes. The caravan set off again. After hours of walking under the blistering sun, they reached a dry well. Inside was only an empty pit, with a small amount of dark, undrinkable water at the bottom. Still, the men wet their parched lips. It was then that another terrifying event occurred. A camel at the rear of the caravan suddenly began to sink into the sand with a loud cry. The men rushed over, throwing ropes, but it was useless. In moments, the camel was dragged beneath the sand as if by an unseen force. There was only a ripple in the sand, no hole, nothing. The men were stunned. Fear was visible in their eyes, and a shiver ran down their spines. Old Abdallah whispered slowly, "I have heard this story. A lost city sleeps beneath the desert sand, and cursed souls inhabit it. Every year they hunt for caravans to take." No one wanted to believe him, but the truth seemed to be unfolding before their very eyes. They set up their tents again before nightfall. This time, no one could close their eyes. And then, that light appeared again in the distance, a moving line of lights, like another caravan crossing the dark desert. But this time, Haiti Caravan clenched his teeth and said, "We will find them. If they are real, they will help us, and if it's a mirage, then we must know the truth." A few brave men took up torches and went forward. The rest stayed behind, watching from a distance. As they got closer, the lights became clearer, but there were no people, no camels, just a row of floating, fire-like orbs. In an instant, all the lights vanished, and the desert was plunged into deep darkness. In that darkness, a voice whispered very close by, "Your turn has come." That terrifying whisper made the caravan members freeze in place. Some looked around frantically, while others trembled as they recited verses from the Caravan. But all around them was nothing but empty sand dunes and the star-filled sky. Haiti Caravan's voice boomed, "Everyone must keep their courage. The desert will not defeat us with fear. We will move forward." But inwardly, he too was shaken. Was that voice truly human, or was it the call of the desert's cursed souls? Very few men managed to sleep that night. They sat awake, keeping watch. At dawn, the tents were packed, and the caravan started moving again. After traveling some distance, they saw strange tracks, footprints in the sand. But they were not human, nor were they from a camel. The prints were long, bizarre, as if some unknown creature had walked across the desert. Jamal said in a trembling voice, "What kind of animal made these tracks? I've never seen anything like them." Abdallah remained silent, his face grim. A shadow of fear was in his eyes. As the caravan climbed a small dune under the midday sun, they suddenly saw a strange sight in the distance, of the ruins of a minaret rising from the middle of the desert, like the remains of an old mosque or city. Everyone stared in amazement. "How can there be a city in the middle of this desert?" one man asked. Abdallah sighed deeply and said, "I have heard that centuries ago, a prosperous city stood here. One night, the entire city was swallowed by the sand. Since then, this desert has been consuming people." The caravan stopped. Everyone was hesitant should they approach the ruins or stay away, but desperate for water, they decided they might find something there. Upon reaching the ruins, they saw that a broken staircase from the half-buried minaret descended into the sand. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of wings brushing against sand. When Jamal bravely tried to enter, a strange noise echoed from within the staircase. It sounded like hundreds of people whispering at once. Everyone backed away. Haiti Caravan said in a shaky voice, "This city is the cursed place. This is why caravans disappear. But it was too late. Amidst the fear, a young man from the caravan, named Hafiz, suddenly screamed and ran down the stairs. Before the others could react, his screams slowly faded away. Then, once again, a terrifying silence. In that moment, the shadow of death fell upon the caravan. After Hafiz's screams faded, everything fell silent. The ancient ruins in the desert seemed to be holding their breath. The wine stopped, and the camels grew restless, stomping their feet. No one could speak. They just looked at each other. Finally, Hadi Karamuddin, clenching his jaw, said, "We cannot leave someone behind like this. If there truly is a cursed city beneath the sand, we must know the truth," Jamal said in a trembling voice. "But hey, Sadip, what if death is lurking there?" Hadi replied grimly, "No one can escape death, but it is better to die seeking the truth than to be lost in an unknown darkness." Finally, 5 brave men holding torches descended the broken staircase. The others remained outside to guard the camels and goods. The deeper the stairs went, the colder the air became. The scorching desert heat seemed to vanish here. The damped walls felt cool to the touch. Suddenly, the whispering sound returned from within, but this time, it was clearly human-like. "Go back, go back, go back." Jamal's throat went dry. He said, almost stammering, "Did you hear that? They are warning us." Hadi Karamuddin looked around with stern eyes. In the torchlight, they could see strange carvings on the walls. They depicted camel caravanserais if from centuries ago, but in every picture, the faces of the people were missing, replaced by empty shadows. This sight sent a chill down everyone's spine. Eventually, the staircase ended, and they arrived in a vast underground chamber. Pillars were broken, the ceiling had caved in, and piles of sand were everywhere. In the middle stood a dilapidated door, inscribed with a strange script. Suddenly, a flash of light shone from a crack in the door, and with that light came the sound of Hafiz's scream, "Save me! I am here!" Everyone was startled. Jamal moved forward and touched the door, and it slowly creaked open. Inside, a strange scene awaited them: an ancient city, half buried underground, broken palaces, dry wells, and scattered stone statues. But the most terrifying part was that the statues all looked human, and their eyes seemed to be alive. Just then, the whispering rose again from all around, "Your turn has come." The eyes of the statues seemed to glow in the darkness. The men of the caravan stood frozen. The half-submerged city beyond the broken door. The voices carried on the wind. It all felt unreal. Jamal was trembling uncontrollably. He whispered, "Pay said it. I swear, those statues are looking at us." No one answered. In the torchlight, the shadows of the statues stretched long across the sand, as if living bodies were staring. Suddenly, the cracked lips of one statue moved, whispering, "Thirst, thirst." In his terror, one of the merchants dropped his torch. The flame went out, and the darkness deepened. Immediately, a scrapping sound arose from all around, like hundreds of feet dragging across the sand. Hadi Karamuddin shouted like the torches, "Everyone, stay together." A torch was lit again. As light flooded the chamber, they saw that several statues were no longer in their places. They had vanished. Terrified, everyone started to back away, but the door began to close slowly, as if pushed by an unseen force. The men screamed and scrambled to get out, but only 3 managed to squeeze through before it shut. The rest were trapped inside. Those outside began to weep in terror. From inside, the trapped Hadi Karamuddin raised his torch one last time and shouted, "If anyone survives, listen to me. The city eats people." The door slammed shut. Then, once again, a horrifying silence fell. The few survivors outside looked out at the desert and realized that nearly half their caravan had vanished. The camels were trying to bolt in a frenzy, and from the distant desert wind, the sound of human cries could be heard. Abdallah said, trembling, "We can try to go back now. But remember, the desert doesn't let anyone return." The surviving men stared at him, stunned. Before them lay only 2 choices: enter the cursed city or perish in the desert. And just then, the moving lights appeared again in the distance. But this time, within the line of lights, they could clearly see them, their own missing companions. They were waving, calling out, "Come, come." The light glowed across the desert. This time, it wasn't like a mirage, it truly looked like a line of people moving forward. The terrifying part was that among them were Musa, Hathis, and their other lost companions. Jamal shivered and said, "Those are our men's. Look, Hathis is waiting." They found a way out. But Abdallah stopped him with a sharp voice. "No, they are not human. The desert has consumed them. What you see is just a trick of the desert." As he finished speaking, a familiar voice called out from among the lights, "Jamal, come, there is water here. Come if you want to live." Maddened by thirst, Jamal could no longer control himself. He ran towards the lights. The others tried to stop him, but he quickly disappeared into the desert sand. The lights flickered out for a moment. Then they reappeared, but this time, Jamal was also standing with them. His eyes were vacant, and a strange smile was on his face. Seeing this, the remaining two men were nearly petrified with fear. Hadi Karamuddin's voice echoed in their minds, "This city eats people." And they scrambled onto their camels and began to flee in the opposite direction. But, at that moment, the desert itself seemed to come alive. The ground trembled beneath them, as if invisible hands were pulling them down. The camels started to stumble. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, lightning flashed in the distance, but there was no rain, only dry thunder. Finally, in a desperate attempt to escape, the two men climbed to the top of a large sand dune. From there, they witnessed a horrific sight. The entire lost part of their caravan was standing in a line in the middle of the desert. Their eyes were empty, rust-covered bells hung from their necks, and their lips moved in unison. "Your turn has come. Your turn has come." The two living men screamed in terror, and that scream was swallowed by the infinite silence of the desert. Standing atop the dune, the two men, Rashid and Baksha, could hardly breathe. Below them, across the desert floor, stood the dead-like figures of their companions. Their eyes were vacant, their lips twisted into grotesque smiles, and their voices chanted in unison, "Your turn has come." Rashid trembled in terror. "We are going to die." "Baksha, the desert spares no one." Baksha replied through gritted teeth, "Though, if the desert eats people, then this could all be a nightmare. If we push forward, maybe there's a way out." Below them, the missing companions began to move as one, advancing as if by some invisible command. The rustic bells around their necks chimed, and with every footstep, the desert seemed to tremble. Suddenly, lightning struck. In the white flash, they saw it. The miner of the ruined city was rising again, as if emerging from beneath the sand. Rashid screamed, "That's not a city, it's a trap." But by then, Baksha was already running desperately down the dune. He believed that water, shelter, and salvation were hidden within those ruins. Rashid watched helpless. As Baksha ran into the midst of the apparitions, they all closed in around him. His scream echoed in the darkness, but it too faded in an instant. Now, Rashid was alone. All around him was the black sky, the fierce desert wind, and below, the dead-like figures of the lost caravan. They raised their heads and stared up at him. Rashid looked desperately to the heavens and began to weep. "Oh, Allah, save me." Just then, the sand beneath his feet began to give way. The entire dune was collapsing. He scrambled and grabbed onto a rock to hold himself up, but the rock was actually the hand of a broken statue. The hand slowly moved, and from its empty eye sockets, a whisper was heard, "Your turn has come." Clinging to the broken statue's hand, Rashid froze. His heart pounded, and he struggled to breathe. Below, the dead-like members of the caravan had begun to climb the dune. Their eyes now glowed with a red hue, and the bells around their necks chimed in a horrifying, malevolent chorus. Desperate, Rashid let go of the stone hand and ran again, cutting across the desert. The sand pulled at him, his feet sinking, but he didn't stop. Suddenly, he saw a line of light in the distance. It looked like dawn. He ran, screaming, "I will survive, I will get out." But as the light grew closer, He realized it wasn't the sunrise. It was the glow of the fire ords emerging from within the cursed city. The entire dune was shaking, as if the city itself was trying to rise again. Panting, Rashid reached the edge of the ruins. Suddenly, Bakshi appeared before him. But Bakshi's eyes were vacant, his lips twisted into a grotesque smile. He whispered, "You see, I found water. Come, you drink too." In his hand was a broken jar filled with a blackish liquid. Rashid backed away in terror. Just then, hundreds of voices roared from all around him. "Your turn has come." The desert sand split open beneath him. He began to sink, flailing his arms for help. But there was no one. For the last time, he looked up at the sky, tears streaming down his face. Then, everything disappeared into the sand. Epilogue: the following year, another caravan passed along that same route. In the middle of the desert, they found a few strange items: rusted bells, a broken water jug, and a handful of torn cloth. There were no people, no camels. The locals still say that on a full moon night, the sound of bells drifts across the desert. A line of lights can be seen in the distance, as if a caravan is on the move. But if you get closer, there is nothing in the emptied, silent desert, and those who dare to venture closer never return. Vanished in the desert, the caravan that disappeared. The desert still holds its secret.